Just imagine a creature weighing barely 2 milligrams. That's roughly the weight of a single grain of sand, hauling a load 50 times its own mass. I mean, if you tried to do that, you'd need to lift a fully loaded Range Rover with one hand. We usually just ignore them, watching them scuttle over sidewalks or dismantle breadcrumbs, but they're actually navigating a physical world that completely defies our human logic. Right now, there are around 16,000 different species of ants, and every single one of them is operating under constraints that just break our standard understanding of power. For us, size is a limitation, but in the insect world, it's actually their most formidable weapon. We're going to uncover why being this small allows for feats that would crush a human skeleton instantly. By analyzing their biology, we'll find out how the rules of physics actually warp to transform these tiny insects into mechanical giants. Take a look down at a concrete sidewalk. To us, it's just a simple path, but for an ant, it's this vast gray wasteland of towering pebbles and deep crevices. Now, consider the scale of this unseen army. There are approximately 10,000 trillion ants on this planet. That number is so massive, it's almost impossible to quantify. If you counted one ant every second, it would take over 300 million years to finish. It's wild. If we put every single one of them on a scale, the combined total weight of all ants would be roughly equal to the total weight of all human beings. We share the Earth with a biological force of this magnitude, and they've colonized every landmass on Earth except Antarctica. This global presence is the result of a perfect mechanical design, one that functions with such precision that a single error can trigger a total collapse of the system, the dreaded death spiral. It's a sobering thought that such a tiny creature commands such a global dominion. Let's get close. If you've watched an ant lift a crumb, you've seen a masterpiece of biological engineering. It all starts with the mandibles. These aren't just pincers. They're high-pressure levers that generate a force far beyond what their size suggests. When an ant grabs hold of something, it isn't just pulling, it's locking into place. Take the red ant, for example. It uses a rapid-fire sequence of biting and stinging, a lethal combination that allows a tiny insect to dominate entire ecosystems. To understand how this happened, we have to look back. The first insects emerged around 400 million years ago, but ants specifically evolved approximately 100 million years ago during the Cretaceous period. By 60 million years ago, they became the dominant insects on the planet. This long evolutionary history has perfected the balance of muscle and chitin, allowing them to move the world around them one tiny grain of sand at a time. So, why does this strength work? It actually comes down to something called the square-cube law. As an object grows in size, its volume, and therefore its mass, increases much faster than its surface area. Now, strength is a function of the cross-sectional area of a muscle. Consequently, as an animal gets bigger, its mass grows by a cube, while its muscle strength only grows by a square. For a human, this means we're heavy and bulky compared to our strength. But for an ant, the math works in reverse. Because they're so small, their weight is negligible compared to the sheer power density of their muscles. If you were to scale an ant up to the size of a human, its legs would snap under its own body weight immediately because its volume would increase far beyond the ability of its thin, spindly limbs to support. The ant is strong not despite its size, but precisely because of it. Let's examine the anatomy. The ant's exoskeleton is made of chitin, a tough, semi-transparent material that acts as both a suit of armor and an anchor for muscles. This structure allows them to exert force without the bulk of an internal skeleton. Look at the neck joint specifically. It's a marvel of stress engineering. Scientists have found that the neck joint of a common field ant can withstand pressures up to 5,000 times its own body weight. That is equivalent to a human being supporting the weight of an entire commercial airliner on their neck. Just think about that. The connection is a ball and socket joint, engineered to distribute load across the entire surface area of the neck, preventing tissue failure even when the ant is anchoring itself against a wind or a predator. Some species push these mechanics to the absolute extreme. Take the trapjaw ant. Its mandibles don't just close, they snap shut at speeds reaching 145 miles per hour. This is the fastest predatory strike in the animal kingdom. The ant locks its mandibles into a tensioned spring mechanism. When triggered, the lapped-up potential energy releases instantly. This force is so great that when the ant strikes the ground, it can launch itself into the air, effectively jumping away from predators in a blur of motion. It's a survival mechanism that converts biological tension into an aerial escape trajectory, turning a defensive tool into a mode of transportation. Inside a colony, the biology is further specialized. The strength of an ant isn't just about size, but about the composition of its muscle fibers. Some ants possess a high density of slow-twitch fibers for sustained lifting, while others have fast-twitch fibers for explosive speed. This is often mirrored in the shape of their head capsule. Ants with broad, wide heads generally have more room for massive muscle attachments, maximizing force for tasks like seed cracking. On the other hand, those with longer, narrower heads are optimized for speed and precision. This mechanical specialization is further tuned by nutrition. The type of worker an ant larva develops into is determined by what they eat. If larvae are fed more protein-rich insects than plant seeds, they're more likely to become larger, more powerful individuals. In leafcutter colonies, this creates a perfect hierarchy. The largest workers act as soldiers, medium workers excavate tunnels, and the smallest workers farm fungus. Therefore, a colony isn't just a group of individuals. It's an integrated machine where every worker's physical dimensions are customized for its specific role. It's fascinating to realize that our perception of the ant as a mere pest is entirely misplaced. When you look past the sheer number of them, you find a level of individual precision and collective coordination that rivals our most advanced human manufacturing. They are, in every sense, mechanical masterpieces, capable of structural feats we're only beginning to replicate in our own engineering labs. Seeing them as tiny, efficient biological machines changes the sidewalk from a mundane surface into a site of sophisticated, non-stop operation. The true power emerges when these biological machines move as one. This isn't just a group of insects, it's a system based on complex chemical and physical signals. Entomologist E.O. Wilson pioneered the study of these signals by analyzing fire ants. He discovered that they use the DeForest gland to deposit chemical trails. Today, we know there are over 20 different pheromones that ants use to communicate. Consider the African weaver ants. They live in trees and construct housing by chaining their bodies together to form bridges, sometimes 10 workers long, to pull leaf edges together. They use their own larvae as glue, squeezing them to produce silk threads that bind the leaves. Their communication syntax is so precise that they can signal alert, search, and attack in distinct sequences. But if the pheromone trail is broken, the system fails, which leads to the death spiral, an antmill where they follow a non-existent trail until they collapse. This social structure is built on singular, brutal focus. Societies are divided into 2 castes, a non-reproductive worker caste and a reproductive royal caste. The queen is the only reproducing female. The majority of eggs hatch into worker ants, females devoted entirely to the queen's welfare. These workers are essentially sacrificial, often dying young without ever reproducing. When the colony hits a critical mass, the queen lays eggs that produce winged reproductive males and young queens. These individuals mate during a nuptial flight. The aftermath is stark. The males die, and the females scrape off their wings to start a new nest. Only 1 in 500 of these new queens successfully establishes a colony. Yet over her lifetime, a single queen can lay up to 300 million eggs, ensuring the cycle continues. Looking at these biological blueprints, it is difficult not to see the potential for the future of technology. We're currently observing a shift in robotics toward biomimicry, attempting to replicate the power density of the ant's neck joint and the efficiency of their collective communication. Could we build micro-robotics that use the same chitinous stress distribution to perform high-load tasks? The design exists in nature, perfected over 100 million years. We're only just beginning to decipher the physical laws that allow these insects to manipulate their environment with such overwhelming efficiency. We began by asking how a creature weighing 2 milligrams can lift 50 times its own mass. The answer, as it turns out, lies in the inversion of physics. As size decreases, the power-to-weight ratio skyrockets. The ant's survival isn't just about muscle. It's about the structural integrity of a 5,000 times weight capacity neck joint and an exoskeleton that allows them to bypass the mass limitations that bind human biology. They function as a superorganism where individual sacrifice fuels a collective that, if measured by pure biomass, rivals the weight of humanity itself. An ant is not merely an insect. It's a specialized, disposable gear in a machine that has conquered every corner of the earth, save for the frozen wastes of the south. It makes you wonder, how much further can this engineering be pushed? And what happens when our machines finally catch up to the efficiency of the colony?